capture inquiry. He was removed for blocking Gupta-related projects. The man, dubbed the Springs Monster, sentenced to 35 years in jail for the torture of his 5 children. Still living in fear, despite Police Minister Becky Cele promising a tactical response team in Westbury. But we start here. Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene has testified at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into state capture. Now, he was fired by former President Jacob Zuma in December 2015. Nene told the Commission today he believes he was axed because he wouldn't approve certain deals. And Erin Bates is here to tell us all about it. Good evening to you, Erin. Let's start with that incredibly dramatic moment where he says exactly what he believes he was fired for.
So Nene says not only that he believes that Zuma fired him over the nuclear deal, but that it was an angry Zuma who did so. And this was really at the apex of both this nuclear deal, which had been discussed during a visit to Russia with other government ministers, but also because he'd refused an offer, a model on how to buy aeroplanes from Dudu Myeni of the SAA. And so these two issues converged at a crux, at a breaking point, and that, says Nene, is why an angry Zuma fired him as finance minister in 2015.
I mean, let's take a listen to that bite, because for me it is absolutely astounding what he's saying.
Indeed, I do believe that I was removed from office because of my refusal to toe the line in relation to certain projects. And in hindsight, and having also heard from the former deputy minister's saga, it seems that those projects may have benefited the Gupta family and other close associates of the then president. I will, if allowed to, describe some of these examples for instance, the nuclear deal and the SAA strategy, because these issues, like other procurement processes within government and state-owned companies, were subject of intense scrutiny by the National Treasury.
Let's pause for a moment and look at those, just 2 of those deals, the nuclear and the SAA deal. If they had gone ahead, Erin, what kind of problems would they have created for our country?
Immense problems, Sadie. Profound cost for the South African government, and not only the government, but the people of South Africa. With the nuclear deal, for example, Nene said that the debt we would have incurred if we'd agreed to get Russia to build this nuclear project would have been felt by generations to come of South Africans, and they would have paid it back. We would have paid it back through electricity tariffs. And he used the example of e-tolls to say that hasn't really worked before. The public revolted because they felt like the e-tolls project was illegitimate. And he foresaw possible similar problems if we went ahead with this nuclear deal.
And if you consider the kind of problems we are facing economically, if we had that to deal with as well, I mean, it just, one doesn't even really want to think about it. Crucially, he named 3 other ministers today. Now, this is where we're going to see things really happening. Who are they? Have they responded?
No,
who pressurized him, actually?
Yes, so what happened was these 3 ministers were along with Nene in Russia in a place called Ufa when they met with President Jacob Zuma, as he was then, to discuss what Zuma would then present when he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And instead of talking broadly about various issues in government, Nene says Zuma honed in on the nuclear deal and where things were at. Nene said Treasury had reached the point where they realized the deal was not feasible, it was not affordable, and it was going to cost South Africans. He then says because he didn't give Zuma the answer that he wanted, these 3 ministers then thought that he'd been insubordinate and had put undue pressure on him. They are not Dudu Myeni of the SAA, they are Maete Nkwana Mashabane of the International Relations Department, David Mahlobo, who was with State Security, and then also Tina Jumat Peterson, who had in fact signed a letter that was going to bind South Africa in this debt with Russia. And so these 3 former ministers at the time, are now implicated in the testimony and may well need to speak before the inquiry.
And no word from them at this point?
Not as far as we know.
Well, that's certainly going to be fascinating to watch. Erin, thank you very much for bringing us all those details from the Zondo Commission. Let's move on now. And the so-called Springs Monster has been sentenced to 35 years behind bars. His ex-wife, a 5-year suspended sentence. Now, the 2 were sentenced today in the North Gauteng High Court after being convicted for torturing their 5 children for over a decade. They were sentenced today, and the children who are in care say they never want to see their parents again. Please note the parents cannot be named, and this is to protect the identity of the children. Mia Spies has the story.
The parents in the Springs House of Horror case were arrested in 2014 after one of their 5 children managed to escape and fled to the neighbours who called the police. Nearly 4.5 years later, they've been sentenced. The father has been sentenced to an effective 35 years in prison for child abuse and neglect, attempted murder, the rape of his eldest daughter, drug possession and obstruction of justice. Judge Eben Jordan agreed with the psychologist's report that the man is a sadist and a psychopath. His now ex-wife received a 5-year suspended sentence for charges that included child neglect and defeating the ends of justice.
The judge found that she was a battered woman and she suffered equally as the children, that she was tortured throughout this whole period in this particular place where they were resident. And the sentence imposed clearly reflects the sympathy of the judge with regard to the whole episode she underwent.
The National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed the sentencing.
We believe it's a sentence that sends a strong message to parents out there who neglect their kids, who abuse their kids.
But the father plans to appeal his sentence. Meanwhile, the couple's eldest daughter might have to relive the whole ordeal when she shares her story.
The kids are doing under circumstances well. The oldest one is brilliant. She's an iron woman in my eyes. She's going to write a book about his life story. The oldest son definitely needs, he's doing well, but he needs help, and the system failed him. The 3 younger ones is in a children's home at the moment.
The children made it clear in the affidavits read out in court that they don't want any contact with their parents. Mia Spies, Pretoria.
To Westbury now. A memorial service for mother of 4 Heather Peterson is underway this evening. She was shot and killed last week, caught in the crossfire between gangs. Police Minister Becky Cele yesterday promised more police in the area and a crackdown on gang activity. But by yesterday evening, it was clear criminals were still operating freely in Westbury. And let's get the details on that story from Masego Ratlacha.
Only a few hours after Police Minister Becky Cele addressed the community of Westbury, promising them a safer area, there was a shooting. Community members say around 9:10 on Tuesday night, they heard 3 gunshots.
The man, who claims the shots were meant for him, has vowed to find the culprits and accuses the police of not being helpful.
The guy came right to my gate, saw me right in my face.
And what did he do?
He had a gun in his right hand. He kept it here on his left chest.
And he was threatening.
Then I opened the gate and I asked him, now you come with guns, why don't you do what you want to do? Then they ran this when they start shooting from there where the van is standing. They're shooting on me.
Community members began fighting amongst each other, with one man even pulling out a knife. He tried to run away, but the police were quickly on him. This resident pleaded with the community to stand together.
First and foremost, why I'm fighting this thing, it's because of my 14-year-old son that's also going down the drains because of drug usage.
Police have opened an attempted murder case over Tuesday night's incident.
Community members and police have reached an agreement after officers promised to make sure there's more visibility in the area. Masego Ratlacha, Westbury.
More concerns today about the safety of buildings for government staff. Trade union Nahau is now threatening a national shutdown if workers at the headquarters of the health department in Pretoria are not moved. The union says the Civitas building does not meet safety standards. They've accused Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi of being irresponsible for taking the matter to court instead of finding alternative offices. Some workers feel safer working in the foyer of the Civitas building, concerned about the air and water quality. Unions claim 88 people have fallen sick as a result of the building. And the Health Ministry says it's not aware of any such cases. Health spokesperson Popo Maja says he, the Minister and other top managers continue to work in the Civitas building and feel quite safe there. Moving on, and family, friends and colleagues paid tribute to the late Minister Edna Molewa during a memorial service in Pretoria. Her colleagues praised her leadership style and her love for conservation and sustainable development. Now, Molewa died earlier this month after a short illness while on an official trip to China. The coronation of Western Pondoland King Ndamase has finally taken place, but under a dark cloud. The Amapondo have been in the midst of an internal fight with the senior Eastern House, threatening to interdict President Cyril Ramaphosa and the government's involvement in today's event. The president was meant to hand over the certificate of recognition to Ndamase, but withdrew at the last minute. Still ahead on eNews, we've got international news for you and real concerns in the city of Palu in Indonesia as authorities run out of body bags and fears of a disease. Of course, we've got all your business news with Michael.
Thanks, Sally. The World Bank is cutting South Africa's growth forecast. That news coming on the eve of a special jobs summit. The bottom line on that story coming up.
Time to talk money now with Michael Marilia. Good evening, Michael. Big event starting tomorrow, the Job Summit. Of course, the question is it going to really make any difference?
Well, one thing's for sure, Sally, it is about time that South Africa deal with this problem. Unemployment rate at around 27%. That is the official rate, by the way. Experts saying that it could be much higher because a lot of people have simply given up looking for work, and it's even higher when it comes to young people. Youth unemployment, a major problem in South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa called for this summit during his State of the Nation address in February, now hoping that business, government and labour will find some solutions, Sally. And we spoke to Business Unity South Africa a little earlier today. They're saying it's an extremely difficult time to hold a job summit, but again, it needs to deal with this problem as soon as it can. Let's take a listen to what Business Unity had to say.
We have to be honest, we're in a job shedding phase at the moment. We haven't seen significant economic growth. The economy is in a very tough space. So to have a job summit under these circumstances is difficult. But I think what we're seeing is a huge appetite from business to get involved, to get stuck in and actually to be part of the solution.
I really hope we see some strong practical solutions coming out of that summit. Disheartening news from the World Bank tonight.
Yeah, the World Bank has said that it is cutting South Africa's growth forecast for this year, Sally. The concern around that is really reduced demand. The high unemployment rate certainly not helping when it comes to the demand for goods and services. It initially estimated 1.4% growth for 2018. It's now cut that to just 1%. So that's barely enough to create jobs for South Africa.
Tough times. Let's look at the markets. Rand had a bad day yesterday and Brent crude oil was at $85. How are we looking today?
Yeah, let's take a quick look at those numbers. The JSE ending in the red today. The oil share losing 0.5% during the session. Financials taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, with investors still nervous about emerging markets. Gold and platinum miners took some pain. The gold stock surged nearly 5% yesterday. Those shares now losing a bit of momentum. Brent crude now trading above $86 a barrel, close to its close to its highest levels in 4 years. Let's hope that doesn't mean more pain at the pump next month. And the rand has lost some ground tonight. It was sitting at 14.35 to the dollar a bit earlier, now trading at 14.54. Keep an eye on that number. As we mentioned, the World Bank cutting South Africa's growth forecast for 2018. So watch that space when it comes to the rand.
Sure, $86 barrel of Brent crude. Okay, where will it end, I wonder? Thank you very much, Michael Marilia. Well, let's take a look at stories making international headlines. Now, Indonesian authorities say they fear a disease outbreak as more bodies are discovered. Authorities in Palu say they're running out of body bags. They want the central government to provide more. More than 1,400 people were killed by the earthquake and tsunami that struck Indonesia 5 days ago. And war-torn Yemen is facing the most severe cholera outbreak in modern times. Experts fear it could get worse. The UN reports more than 10,000 new cases are being reported every week. Most people live in makeshift homes in Yemen with no sanitary facilities. Almost 2 million children are suffering from malnutrition, making them more susceptible to the disease. And to make matters even worse, a cholera treatment centre run by Doctors Without Borders was hit by an airstrike in June. After the break, we'll go to Candice at our weather centre in Cape Town for your live weather. Hi, Candice. And then a life-changing ticket and the envy of millions for a Limpopo security guard. Let's check in with the weather centre. Good evening, Candice McKechnie. Looking forward to that cold front in Johannesburg tomorrow. Is it going to be frosty?
It's definitely going to be a chilly day. In fact, the weather is keeping us on our toes this spring with lots happening at the moment. You mentioned that cold front. It's already starting to move out, but it brought in cloudy, cold and wet weather over the eastern part of South Africa. It still brings in some rainfall along the KwaZulu-Natal coastline, and tomorrow we'll see cloudy weather pushing in over the far northeastern part of the country. Cooler temperatures into Gauteng, Limpopo and northwest. A slight possibility of snowfall for the Lesotho mountain tops and even into the Highveld as we head overnight. Sunny and warmer conditions are expected over the western part of South Africa, though you'll see highs in the mid-20s for Pretoria, Kimberley, Potchefstroom and but quite a chilly start to the day for the Northern Cape. Sunny and warmer conditions are forecast for the Western Cape, a bit of cloud in the southwest, around 20 degrees for George, 25 as we head towards Cape Town, and you'll see a warmer day for the Eastern Cape, but still cool here with highs in the upper teens and low 20s with a dry forecast. Cloudy and wet over the northeastern part of KwaZulu-Natal, warmer temperatures here, but still quite cold, very cold as we head towards Mpumalanga, only 14 for Ermelo, and that's a mixture of snow and rainfall for Ermelo, Emakazeni and Secunda. A very slight chance of that snowfall occurring overnight and into the early hours of Thursday morning. Cloudy with rainfall over the eastern part of Limpopo with a cooler day, and that cooling extends all the way through to northwest. 24 for Mahikeng and Klerksdorp, 22 as we head towards Bloemfontein with a chilly start to the day for the Free State, freezing for Bethlehem. Gauteng can expect a cooler day, partly cloudy and dry here. 18 for Johannesburg with the rest of those highs at around 20. It'll be a dry end to the work week across South Africa, mild over the southern and eastern parts. You'll see temperatures warming up as we head towards the weekend. Gauteng can expect a high of around 30 by Saturday, with Cape Town also at 30 and Vredendal at a scorching 41. That's all from the Weather Centre for now. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Candice. And finally, it's been a fantastic week for a Limpopo-born security guard. He will finally marry the woman of his dreams because he's won 64 million rand in the Powerball jackpot. The man whose identity is being withheld, probably to stop all his friends asking for a loan, says he can at last marry the love of his life, who he's been with for 18 years. He's moved to Cape Town. He says he's really excited about taking his 2 children to better schools. He's also planning to build his dream home and retire from his job. Let's recap your top stories. Fired for not towing the line, Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene tells the State Capture Inquiry he was removed from his job by Jacob Zuma for blocking Gupta-related projects. And the man dubbed the Springs Monster sentenced to 35 years in jail for the severe abuse of his 5 children. From me and the team, it's a very good night.